Hello, Samara. It's very nice to have you on my podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor.
And you are a journalist working on right-wing media, on Talk TV, and I can see in British politics, right-wing media is only emerging at this point of time. It's not really been there for a very long time. And even though it's
Yeah.
emerging, even though it's I can say on the rise,
Mm.
we can still see that people preferred Labour government over the Conservative government, for example, over reform in the latest elections, and chose Keir Starmer. How do you assess the situation? Where do you think the country is going under Keir Starmer?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think the rise of conservatism, you're right, in terms of proper right-wing media and like the rejection of the mainstream is definitely sort of a new phenomenon that has kind of coincided with the rise of reform in this country. But I think I mean, the last election, I don't think Keir Starmer won necessarily. I think people just voted against the conservatives. So I think that it was more of a protest vote. A lot of people didn't show
Mm,
up. The numbers of engagement were very low. And people just thought, oh my God, I've got two options. Because ultimately they did just have two options between Rishi Sunak, who honestly, in my opinion, I was always a bit of a fan of Rishi. And it's interesting because you can see some of his reforms like with immigration. Now coming into practice, you can see that immigration has halved year upon year. But that was actually the conservatives. But everything bad that's going on now, I think, can wholly be attributed to Keir Starmer. But I don't really think the country chose him in that way. And in terms of reform, I mean, because obviously I work quite closely with Nigel
mm.
Farage and the Reform Party. They're very big with our audience over at Talk, but also they frequently come on the show. I know for a fact that he wasn't even planning to run in that election. I mean, the fact that Reform even picked up 5 seats at the time was a massive shock, even for us over at Talk. And I actually think even for Reform themselves, it was a massive shock because they only entered the race with about, I think, 4 weeks to go until the actual election. So that wave is just beginning. And I think it's only just the start for them. And now they're saying, okay, we've got a presence in the parliament. We're asking questions. We're making a lot of noise, more than the conservatives. And this 4 years is going to be a testament to how hard they can work to try and build a wave. And in my opinion, a lot of people are saying, oh, Farage might be the next prime minister. I am 50-50 about that, but the opposition, I mean, that's almost, I could see them being the opposition tomorrow if they had an election today.
Exactly. Now, the Labour Party has always been associated to me with well, for the past 5 years or so, has been associated to me um, with politics based on gender, on sex, and they have managed to quite frequently win seats, uh, being the party for inclusion, being the party for diversity. But now, as we see the world reversing, some of the people who are still in those trends, like uh, advocating for trans people, like giving quotas for minorities, they're still behind. But how do you think the country has evolved, and how many people do you think are still left behind in that mindset that we should still support trans? They don't have enough rights.
Yeah.
They're being held back from progress.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing a total rejection of that. I think that that's what happens when we have great economic scarcity. The issue is that when you really look at kind of, this is a bit of a far-fetched point, but it is really how I feel, is that when you see the economy going through a boom, you see us focusing on things like trans rights, LGBTQ, and all these miscellaneous issues, which I don't actually feel like really we should be spending time on. Now that we have a cost of living crisis, now that the rubber has really hit the road, people don't have time to focus on frivolous subjects like that. I mean, I feel like during the height of probably when we were both teenagers, that was when LGBTQ was really coming up, and it was the trend, and if you said anything against it, it was over for you. But now the wave has changed, because people's priorities have changed. And I think that we're taking all of this a lot less seriously because a lot of people just don't have the time or the bandwidth to focus on these issues. But it's like with everything, I think it flung way too far in the other direction. And now it's kind of snapping back and we're reaching this almost kind of equilibrium of like what is normal, what is common sense. And I'm kind of happy to see that happening, but it almost had to go to the level of extremism that it did, I would probably say in like 2018, for it to then go back in the other direction. So I think with LGBTQ, countries like Russia, countries like even Ukraine, although Ukraine was obviously always a bit more liberal. I only reference that because I know obviously that's where you are from. But Eastern Europe, China, India, they laugh at the West because the West consumes itself with these culture wars while they are all getting engineering degrees and getting ahead.
They're
So
just focusing on the right stuff.
correct. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. I think that we have wasted so much time in this country and in Australia and in the US on these issues that actually affect less than 0.1% of the population. And so I'm happy to see a rejection of this. And I do hope that that continues and we actually kind of realign ourselves in a proper way.
I'm glad you've touched on the global situation in the world right now, because I think really China is growing so fast. You can see when, if you study history of China, how it has grown, just surged upwards in terms of economic prosperity, in terms of technology development. And same goes for many of the Asian countries that are now, by technology, by economy, are growing very fast. But I think with Russia, with probably partly China, of course, with countries like North Korea, which are being ruled by dictators, there is a big question which comes up is because those people have proclivity towards starting wars, like we have seen with Putin. And what's scary and probably more interesting, and I'm excited to see what's coming up under Trump, is that he seems to get along with these leaders well. And
Yeah.
on one side, this is what we need, right? We don't need to make conflicts with them constantly to cause wars. But on the other side, do you think Trump has certain do you think Trump can, I can say, do you think Trump likes those leaders in terms of personality, or he just needs to get along with them very well to make good deals?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of people do see that he does admire these leaders a lot more dictatorial leaders, people who get stuff done, for lack of a better word. Of course, I'm a big fan of democracy, but democracy is very ineffective and it takes a lot of time to get stuff done. And bureaucracy is an absolute nightmare if you have a vision and you want to turn the country around 180 degrees. So in terms of Trump's like vision for America, he does want to obviously throw the book out and just say, this is how I'm going to do it and this is how it's going to run. But he can't do that really in a democracy. I mean, to be fair, because he won the House of Reps, because he won the Senate, he's had a lot more sway and been able to get things passed very easily. But I think when you look at his recent trip to the Middle East, you can see how much he admires that system of kings and people who can just make a decision and it be effective tomorrow. You can't do that in the West. And that's actually stunted us for better or for worse. I mean, there's many instances where it's a good thing that you have to go through so many processes to get things passed. But I think that Trump, at the end of the day, he's business first, politics second. And this sort of gung-ho way of leadership is much more in line with how he wants to rule. But I just don't think that, unfortunately, he's ever going to make the US into a dictatorship or anything like that, like the left tries to speculate. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but he'll try and do as much as he can in that sort of way to make sure that he rules, yeah, more like someone who wants to make one set decision. But I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I mean, what do you think about how he's going? Do you think that he admires people like Ceausescu, for example?
I probably think more yes than no, but you're right in terms of in the US, as big of a victory as he has obtained, as much as he got the House of Representatives, the Senate, he's now the president. He's still not the dictator. Even though there are
Yeah.
more Republican judges in the Supreme Court, he's still not the dictator, and he still hasn't got the full power.
Yeah, they're
But
blocking him as we speak. That was a
I
big
think he's certainly
big story.
acting like he's got more power than he actually does.
Yeah.
And his approach on deal making with Ukraine, Gaza, is something that I can say we've never seen before. We've never seen a person to be this
Mm.
determined to solve wars. But the question is, does that work? Is it likely to work? Or it's likely to favor the dictators?
I mean, there's people like JD Vance that would straight up just say, why are we even involved?
Mm.
Why are we even being the peacemakers? What does the US have to do with any of these conflicts? And you can see that when he does talk to world leaders and when he invites them into the Oval Office, that's one very good thing about Trump and why he picked up all those votes and why he still has massive support from his people is because he's always thinking in an America first way. So even with this Zelensky Trump stitch up, which was just crazy to be in the newsroom for because
It was
we were
just
just like,
laughable.
what? Yeah, well, for us, we were like, it's ratings gold. Like you can't get better than this. I mean, he's gone and ditched the lunch, he's gone and run out of it was all theater. And I think we forget both of them are reality TV. I mean, well, not reality TV stars, but both of them are television stars. So they know how to create
Interesting.
theater.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to be discounted that Zelensky was also an intelligent clown for you're not going to like that, but I do think that I full disclosure, I lived in Russia for quite some time, and the opinion of Zelensky over there is not exactly high, only because he played a president, similar to like on The Apprentice, how Trump played a businessman. They have some sort of similar love for theater, so I think that that's kind of what that was. But anyway, Trump and JD, they were acting in a America first way. All the rhetoric they were using, they weren't trying to pick up votes in the UK. They weren't trying to pick up votes in Europe, where everyone was shocked at how the president acted. Who really liked how he was talking, especially how JD Vance was talking? The American people. So I think that that's one point of difference when we look at how the deal making is done. It's a lot more America first and less sort of, oh, we're going to be the universal unifier for everyone. And I think it's different. You don't have to like it, but yeah, there's a lot for you to push back on there, I'm sure. So I'll let you go
But
for it.
I don't know, the opinions in Ukraine of what is going on are now so diverse that
That's true.
you probably can't really sort out what's true and what's not. So I'm not gonna necessarily criticize you on anything because the opinions are so different. And I haven't been living in Ukraine for the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know what's going on really.
Yeah, it
But how do
changes.
you think it's gonna work out? Is this going to help Ukraine? Is this going to help democracy, if you wish? The Trump's approach to making a deal and forgetting about America's involvement.
I think that, I mean, the rhetoric that I keep hearing, especially lately, is, hey, we're going to just walk away. We
Mm.
don't want to be involved anymore. I know that JD, who obviously doesn't have that much power as the vice president, but he's really keen to do that. Trump, of course, like he wants, first of all, he wants this Nobel Peace Prize. That's a big thing for him, but he loves a good award. And I don't blame him for it, but he does want a bit of a Nobel Peace Prize, and I think that's why he's actually still including himself in these negotiations. But I also think he is the one to butter a deal. He knows Putin quite well. They spoke over 9 times while he wasn't the president, which is kind of an unheard of thing. And he kind of understands the Eastern European culture, I think, a little bit better than past US presidents, maybe because he had an interest in Eastern European women. His kids are Eastern European. I do think he actually does get it, though, without being facetious. And I think that he will be able to broker a deal, but I do also think that the situation is much more insurmountable than he originally thought. I do think that it's a little bit more complicated. I would like to know your thoughts on the minerals deal, and what you think about that as a Ukrainian.
But well, I nobody really knows the full details of that deal. I've read through the papers,
That's
through the full
true.
papers of the deal, and it doesn't say much. It says that UK would. It says that the US would like to get the minerals from Ukraine, but it's not like Ukraine has a lot of minerals there for him
It
to
will
search
take
for,
years. Yeah, it will take years. It will take probably 10 to
and it
15
will take
years.
years to get them. So it seems to me more like a move, like I will be doing something for you, solving the war, etc., helping Ukraine, doing investments, but then I need to justify to public, to
Mm.
my public in the US back at home, that I will get something in return and not just get involved because it contradicts his strategy, right?
That's true. I mean, I think that it's interesting how people haven't seen that the minerals deal is actually a massive encroachment on Ukraine's sovereignty. It's probably debatably a bigger encroachment than some of the territory that Russia's trying to gain, because it's it's a deal basically saying to the US, yes, you can have access to a lot of our natural resources, and no problem, you can have all this money and all this profit from it. So I don't understand how it's been sold as this pro Ukraine thing. I think it's actually like a big indictment on Ukraine's sovereignty.
But the Ukraine war now seems to be a conversation between, well, Ukraine, Russia, and Trump. But initially, what we used to hear during Ukrainian war is that NATO will get involved. NATO will get involved. Many of the European countries will get involved. Russia has to fear all of them. And eventually, there was even a short period of time when North Korean troops entered to fight with Ukraine, killed some of our people, left, and nobody
Yeah,
said anything. And this is so
I
ridiculous to
know.
me
Yeah.
because another country just entered, intervened with the conflict directly, and Europe is still scared. I mean, probably rightfully so, but they're still scared to intervene with the conflict. Where do you think the role of NATO lies here, and how powerful it is?
I mean, I think to discuss that, you'd have to go back into why the war even started in the first place, which was because Russia did feel like nuclear weaponry was coming closer and closer to their front doorstep. Now, you don't have to agree with me on that, but that is one of the theories that's obviously out there. But I think that um, NATO, Zelensky, he wants to be part of it, but unfortunately, Ukraine does that have this thing called corruption. And there are lots of different checks that you have to pass in order to become a member of NATO, and Ukraine's never been able to pass those checks. So I think that that's probably the biggest thing that's in the way of Ukraine joining NATO. It's not. I think people act as if it's this sort of like party where you just have to get invited and it's all good, but it's a very serious club, and the the things that you get access to when you're part of that club are not just given to anyone. So I think NATO, it's a big kind of boulder in this whole situation, but I just don't think it's going to be the answer. And I don't know if Ukraine will actually get to join NATO, unfortunately, unless they really sort out their corruption going on at home. And that's not to say, by the way, that Russia doesn't have corruption. Of course, Russia has corruption, but I don't think that it's a perfect player in this game.
I do think Ukraine has a very small likelihood of entering into NATO.
Okay.
Because countries, the reason primarily is to accept Ukraine in NATO now would mean to fight Russia.
Yeah.
That's something that countries just frankly don't want to do. and we can't really blame them for that. They just don't want to do it. And the people in those countries are not supporting the move that's been accepting Ukraine into NATO. So since democracy is ruled by the majority of people, it really wouldn't make sense for European leaders to do that. But with this wars, I think yes, one of the reasons that Russia, Putin, gave into media, as in why they invaded Ukraine, was that NATO was coming closer. But as we can see, first, NATO is not that scary. NATO hasn't been involved in major war operations since probably bombing of Serbia, of Belgrade.
That's
and
true.
NATO has many issues, such as if they were to even produce many tanks, if they were to go to a war tomorrow, they would need to consider the fact that all the tanks, everything is not created in one country. So bullets might be created in Poland. The tank itself might be assembled in Germany, and some other parts might be created in France. So they would need a lot of time to really gather their war potential. And I think it will be extremely hard for them. But I do think Ukraine, in terms of the war, has been trying to act in a sort of Western way, maybe more ethical. They've tried to show that they're treating the Russian captures, nicely. They're trying to show that they have obeyed international law. But at the same time, we can see that many of the Russian, quite honestly, violations of international law are being ignored by European powers. And we can see that Russia can now do anything and not be punished by other countries. And I don't know where we're going with this. Kind of scary.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think it's the first time that any country's not adhered to international law. I mean, America is
No,
one of
certainly not.
the worst with this. I mean, yeah, it's I think that Russia's got a very bad marketing rap, and everyone does really think that they are evil, and they haven't, a lot of their actions haven't helped that. But yeah, I just think it's like we can't really just say that they're the only ones that are doing this stuff. I mean, I agree with you that Ukraine has made a big effort to come to the international stage and work together and sort of trying to simulate with Europe. And Zelensky is a great asset in that way because he's very, very good at getting PR for for the cause and PR for his own cause. There's a war going on in Sudan. There's one going on in Yemen. We don't know about that because they don't have these leaders that come out in their outfits and come and go and meet world leaders and collect funding. So I think that that's one thing. He's kept the war relevant. And I just talk from a media perspective. I know it sounds very sort of like sanitary to talk about wars and things in this way, because of course at the end of the day, there's 5,000 people your age and dying every week because of this. But from a media perspective, it's pretty unusual how he's kept this cause so relevant within the media. And so I respect that about him, because he continues to get funding, and he continues to try to push his narrative out, which I think it's correct. I mean, the Ukraine, seeing the videos and things that you can't deny what's going on is bad, but I don't know. I thought there'd be a resolution like a month after Trump got into power, because it did look like it was going that way, and then everything just kind of went to the wayside.
I don't think Putin is interested in making a deal now. Nothing seems to be going wrong for him. It's hard. He clearly sees that countries are not willing to get properly involved with the Ukrainian war, so he wants to keep going. But let me ask you on the country you were born in, the UK, more.
I'm actually Australian.
Yeah. Then the country that you have lived for the most time.
Yes, for 6 years I've been living here. So yeah, it does feel like home. It feels like home. But I'm glad I fooled you.
That's why you're so expert on external affairs of the UK.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm an expert, but yeah, I'll take it.
But let me ask you on the UK, because you surely have an opinion on immigration policies. You have mentioned that under Rishi Sunak, they've gradually been improving. And what do you think is going on under Keir Starmer? Is it getting worse?
Well, as we talked yesterday, there was record numbers crossing the channel of illegal immigration, which is a whole separate topic. I think it is important to separate the two, legal and illegal. They do get blurred a lot, especially in right-wing media. We like to blur them, and I do think that there is a big difference. So yeah, we had 1,000. It was almost 1,200 asylum seekers cross the channel yesterday, and that is proving the biggest issue for Keir Starmer at the moment, because that is ultimately a poison chalice that he has inherited from the Conservative government, who did not stop the boats. They did not solve the illegal crisis, which is costing us a lot of money. I mean, these figures came out over the weekend that every month asylum seekers are costing the UK economy £1 billion in benefits. So that's just massive, massive numbers for a country that, even if we were in a massive period of opulence, would be very, very gratuitous for us to just be giving over our taxpayer dollars to. But we're actually not in a big period of opulence. We're in a period of massive scarcity. And so the friction comes between the locals and the newcomers. And that's when society starts to have a lot of tensions, because it's the have and the have-nots, and people see people coming freshly to the country and getting a lot of different benefits that they aren't privy to. And I think that that's kind of the fundamental issue right now, and that's why people are feeling resentment towards that. Now, there is an illegal migrant problem, but in terms of legal migration, it is interesting how, I mean, we're both actually two immigrants that have immigrated to the UK, and that is not a bad thing, because we are both contributing massively to the economy.
Trying our best.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's almost impossible not to in London. You just step out the door and you've spent £100. So, you know, I think in terms of legal immigration, I think that people should always take a leaf out of Australia's book, which is where I come from. And we are pretty strict about, hey, we are a first world country. And as I said, actually, on your friend Pete Barnes's podcast, it should always kind of be a golden ticket-esque immigration policy when you have such a great country like Britain or America or Australia. And it should be a privilege to be able to come to these countries and contribute and assimilate into the culture. And I just don't think that that is what's been going on lately. And we can see that when you step out onto the street and see that there's a real lack of social cohesion going on.
Now, when I see people complaining about immigration, whether it's illegal or legal, I kind of, as a thinking human being, try to ask myself, why are people complaining? And clearly there are problems like housing, like overpopulation. Probably some people believe the jobs might be taken by the UK, by the immigrants.
Mm.
But therefore, I came up with a really interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
If asylum seekers or immigrants were not hurting the country, do you think it would be rational to allow everybody in?
It's a good question. I think I still don't think that illegal immigration is anything that we should support, because at the end of the day, it's actually people smugglers and terrorist organizations that profit from people smuggling people across the border. It's not this flowery pursuit of, oh, I'm fleeing war. Maybe just like how it was kind of after World War II, a lot of, Jewish people fleeing, a lot of persecuted people from Europe migrating. It's not like that anymore. It's a very dirty, murky, and dark industry that is controlled by criminals. And so there's no way that should actually be something that we encourage. And that's, I think, what people really forget is that it's not actually kind to people to promise them a life over here if they pay £1,500 to a people trafficker. Legal immigration is much more important. And the issue is when you do say, would it be rational to let people come over here in boats? It's not nice to them. It's not nice to the country. We have no idea, because they have to rip up their documents. We have no idea where they come from, what their past life was. And that's why legal immigration is, of course, a much better thing, because we get all this information and we can control who comes into the country. But with illegal, we have no idea. And we have all these really left-wing lawyers that work day and night to keep these people in the country with these fake claims of being homosexual, with fake claims of being persecuted back at home. And we don't even know. They could be making this up because we don't know their identity. So it's a murky, dirty industry. And I think personally it should be shut down. But some people like to have a very flowery view of it that I just don't agree with.
Now, on the issues that the UK faces now, Trump has many times said that UK limits freedom of speech. UK has gone too woke. Where do you think the problems lie there? Do you think UK and the whole of Western powers really have gone too far left, that we should really, on Talk TV, maybe on GB News, give a big pushback against that?
I mean, it's hilarious because stifling speech was always a right-wing idea. It was
Yeah.
the left wing that always loved to be a bastion of free speech. So it's just funny that there's been such a 360 shift and everything's just kind of, or a 180 shift and everything's just flipped the other way. And it's hilarious how, in Russia there were 400 arrests over social media posts last year. And obviously in the UK, there was about, I think it was 3,300. Yeah. I mean, we hear this statistic quite a bit and we go, oh my God, like this is ridiculous. But it does feel that way. I think Labour is very ideologically set on what is right and what is wrong. And I think that that's a really, really dangerous precedent to set because people like Keir Starmer do have this idea that anyone that doesn't kind of agree with him is far right, or anyone who's got an idea about migration is far right. And it's funny how much he's evolved since he became prime minister with that. Um,
He's changed.
he's changed so much, even in the past 6 months. I mean, when I look back to the Southport incident, which was a very, very big thing for the UK and contributed to a lot of these arrests. We've got Lucy Connolly still in jail. And we've had Peter Lynch, who was arrested for a sign and then put in jail. He was holding up a sign at one of the protests. Peter Lynch subsequently did kill himself in prison. So there's been consequences to Keir Starmer's edicts. But I think that in terms of free speech in the UK, it doesn't exist at the moment. And I think that
Quite an honest
I know
opinion.
it's like,
I'm
oh,
not gonna lie.
I know that's a controversial opinion, but I don't feel like it does. I mean, every time I tweet something, I'm kind of I'm not worried, but you do think twice when you see this. And the thing is, America has a free speech absolutism, and I don't think I'm a free speech absolutist completely, but a lot of people are. And I guess it just depends where you stand on this. Like, where would you stand on that subject? Would you consider yourself a free speech absolutist?
I think there are limits to free speech, but I don't think they are currently being drawn correctly.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
there should be limits on, well, I think from what I've read, from what I know, this comes from after the Second World War, when in Germany there were still people left who supported
Yeah.
the person that you would get banned for mentioning on Instagram, for example.
Yes. Yeah, which I actually, yeah,
We needed
I
to
have no
limit.
issue with that being banned.
Yes, and we needed to limit those people from speaking up. We needed to filter the speech in order for Germany to become a democracy. But
Mm.
now that these issues are, I can say, far behind us, I think there should be more allowed, especially in the UK. There should be no
Yeah.
incitement to violence. There should be no supportment of terrorist organizations, but you should be able to voice your opinions. I'm a very much a libertarian in that regard.
Yeah, I mean it stifles a lot of conversation. I think it's only in literally the past probably 2 years where you're kind of allowed to discuss things. I mean, I remember being in university and getting threatened to the lecturer threatened to evict me from the university because I had a different opinion to her on a gender studies class that she was teaching, which the fact that there's even a gender studies class in university, which is taught by this sort of, and then the sort of stuff we were discussing about how much women should get paid in Hollywood and how much men
Mm.
should. And I sort of had a bit of a different opinion. I was like, well, that woman isn't getting paid as much because she isn't as good of an actor. That's why. It's not because of her gender necessarily. And that apparently was an evictable offense, and I could be
How is that
chucked out
such a
of uni for
controversial
that.
opinion nowadays? I cannot imagine.
Yeah, it's hilarious. So it's just, that type of stuff really boils my blood when it comes to free speech, especially in a university. And a university is where these ideas are meant to be spouted and then challenged. And so the one thing is that with freedom of speech, you also open yourself up to people disagreeing with you. And there are some people that really do think my way is the right way and everyone else should just go, go do whatever. So when I do make these broad brush statements, oh, free speech doesn't exist in the UK, I do think that's true, but I think I can see how you'd find it comical because, like, in lots of parts of the world, free speech is not a thing, and we should at least feel some sort of thankfulness that I can get up here and say, oh, Keir Starmer's a horrible prime minister or something like that. But honestly, that's the baseline. That's how it should be. I don't see it being any other way. So yeah, I think in countries like Australia, where I'm from, it's just absolutely mad how people's mouths have been zipped up and shut up, and there's only one way, and it is this woke virus and ideology that has overtaken a lot of Western countries, and ironically stifled free speech.
Another thing you have spoken about a lot is the issue of trans women
Oh
um,
yeah.
competing in sports, doing the kind of things that are unimaginable sometimes to just biological women. How do you think we should push back against it, especially at the times when the speech is so censored, um, everything is so controlled that it seems like you can speak out against the government, you can speak out against Keir Starmer, we have no problems with that, but you can't really speak out against certain groups of people.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it is true that these very very small sections of society somehow gained a lot of power. Now, obviously, the law has come out about what a woman is. It's taken 5 years, 88 pages of legal documentation, uh, and 12 different justices to decide what a woman is. Now, that is embarrassing. That's embarrassing to the West. That's embarrassing to everyone involved. And it's an embarrassment and a stain on, honestly, Britain's history that it took 5 years to define what a woman was. But with all that being said, it is it's been very good for the movement. It's been very good for protecting biological women because yeah, I don't think that trans people have a place in sport. I don't think they have a place in women's changing rooms, and I'll always feel that way, but the fact that it's even a controversial position to hold is madness. And I keep referencing Australia just because Australia is really behind with how they treat women, because they still do have all these sort of trans changing rooms, and basically men are allowed into women's changing rooms at any time, and they've really put biological women on the back foot. And I just think that it's one of those issues where if you let one thing slide, then it just snowballs. And it's nice to see that. I do think it is the Trump effect. I think as soon as Trump started making women's rights a priority, which is it's a funny statement because I never thought that he would be like this sort of ultimate feminist, but he kind of is. Like he's the one who signed the executive order to make at least in America men not a part of women's sports. But I just hope that that wave continues and that actually we're able to gain some of our rights back, because it really is a nefarious movement. And of course, I will always feel like trans people should have their own rights. But even when they were saying, when the court ruling came out and they said, oh, our rights have been taken away today. Oh my God. It's like, no, no rights were taken away from you. You have human rights still. We all had human rights. It was women's rights that were being impacted because you had some weird sycophantic idea of coming into women's changing rooms and asserting yourself. So that's my opinion on it.
As for my decision, I love the healthy debate. And look, you can say something on Ukraine, and I will disagree with you because I see things differently. And
Yeah.
in the same way, you should be able to voice your thoughts against some of the opinions being said on the left and get no backlash for it because it's your opinion. But let's hope for the debate, for the healthy debate to be promoted in media and in politics. And thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great conversation. Hope to do it again soon.